West Yorkshire um, of the West Yorkshire Innovation Festival. My name is Mandy Ridyard, and I'm the owner of an aerospace engineering company in Bradford. I'm a board member of the LEP, but what I'm most excited about is being chair of Space Hub Yorkshire. So it's great to have you here today and to be able to share this exciting new initiative with you. We have a fantastic lineup of people and content. And so hopefully as the next couple of hours go on, you'll be able to ask some questions and hear some great information. So firstly, space in Yorkshire. Do they really go together? It's not something that you naturally think of, but it is interesting to note that the first British astronaut was Helen Sharman, and she was from Yorkshire. And actually, of the other 8 astronauts, or the other 7 astronauts that they are, 2 more of them have Yorkshire connections. But not only that, in the work that we've been doing in Space Hub Yorkshire, we found that we have a very vibrant space community. We have some brilliant businesses in our region working in both upstream and downstream space. We have our Yorkshire universities, the biggest density of higher education institutions outside of London, and they're forming an orbit of innovation around them and working on the space agenda in all of them. But why are we so interested in Yorkshire in space? Well, space is growing quickly. The space-enabled market is expected to be worth 400 billion by 2030. And the UK government loves space and wants to grow our share of that 400 billion to 10%. It doesn't just want to push the frontier of space, but it wants to use that innovation, its adoption, to create economic prosperity for all. And in Yorkshire, we can really be part of that levelling up agenda. It's interesting to note that yesterday in the integrated review that Boris mentioned space 112 times. Now, is that a lot? But if you compare that to climate change was mentioned 90 times. So that starts to put on the map how important space is. And if you look at the space announcements over the last few months, they've been coming thick and fast. We've heard about accelerator programs for businesses, a space bridge with Australia. We've talked about launching our first rocket by 2022 and the development of regional space hubs. And that's why we're here. We're one of those space hubs that we're trying to develop. And Space Hub Yorkshire wants to be the leading light of those regional space hubs. So what we've been doing is we've been mapping our region, finding out what assets we've got, what work we've already got in our region, and what skills we have. And we're putting that together in an inclusive growth strategy, which we'll be publishing in April. And to get that strategy together, what we've been doing is talking to our stakeholders, our businesses, our universities, and what else, other assets that we have in our region. And what we really want to do is to grow those businesses, grow that research, inspire young people, and help ensure that we have the skills that we need to develop space into a vibrant community for the region. Space and innovation go hand in hand, and Space Hub Yorkshire can really provide a focus for that. So today we're going to hear from the CEO of the Space Applications Catapults. We're going to listen to our early findings from the research we've been doing with perspective economics. We have the European Space Agency in the format. We have DASA here and we have the LEP, and we're going to be having a roundtable with the UK Space Agency, some of our businesses and our universities answering questions. And please, when we get to those points, please put your questions into the chat. But at this point, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Anna Hogg. Anna has been the real energy behind the start of this fantastic journey and is really the start of developing Space Hub Yorkshire. So Anna, over to you.
Thanks so much, Mandy, and what a fantastic introduction to Space Hub Yorkshire. It really summarises what we've been working on over the last few months and trying to develop for our region. I'm really excited about today because it's the first opportunity that we have to really open ourselves up to public scrutiny and to launch our network, which is the foundations of what we want to do with the centre. So you'll see on some of the slides presented today the opportunity to join our LinkedIn groups and get connected into the network. So this is our invitation to you to work together now to build this future for Yorkshire. I'm an academic at the University of Leeds. I'm based in the School of Earth and Environment. And while I'm a glaciologist, I use satellite data to study the flow of glaciers and change in ice thickness and what its contribution to sea level rise might be. So just in the same way that glaciology in Antarctica might feel like really remote locations away from us here in the UK, and space is far up in the sky and you might not know whether your company is a space-based company. But I hope that you'll see with some of the examples and the case studies that we'll be hearing from today that space is for everyone. And at Space Hub Yorkshire, we'll be working together with our local governance and our LEP in order to make that a reality for all the companies in our region. So without further ado, can I hand over to the first speaker?
So Stuart Martin is the CEO of the Space Applications Catapult. So Stuart, if you're set up and ready to go, it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Well, thank you very much, Mandy and Anna, for that great scene setting for the discussion today. Yes, I'm Stuart Martin. I'm the Chief Executive of the Satellite Applications Catapult, and it's great to be speaking here at the Yorkshire Innovation Festival. I think what I've been asked to do today, I think what I'd like to do today is try and give a bit of a sense of why it is that Boris Johnson mentioned space so many times in his speech yesterday. Why is space so important, and what is the opportunity for the UK? And then with that context, why the catapult has been set up, how that we work, and then why we're so excited about the opportunity to work with Space Hub here in Yorkshire and some of the other centres that we work with around the country. So why is space so important? Well, according to the latest estimates that I've seen, something like £350 billion, somewhere between 10 and 15% of the UK economy, relies on space in order to deliver its services. So it's becoming an ever increasing part of the infrastructure of business and society here in the UK. And actually, I think that 10 to 15% is a pretty low estimate. And how does this manifest itself? Well, some of it is obvious. I think we're familiar with things like satellite TV. We're familiar with having satellite navigation on our mobile phones, helping us connect us with our friends. Some of it is rather less obvious. The same signal that provides our position into our mobile phones also delivers a very precise timing service to synchronized electricity networks or our telecommunications networks. It's also used in the financial services world to time financial transactions. Increasingly, insurance companies are using satellite imagery to monitor, critical events like floods or hurricanes. This helps them get the funds needed quickly to those who genuinely are in need of it, and also helps them identify fraudulent applications for compensation as well. So there's all sorts of ways that space technology is being used. We're seeing it in healthcare, in fishing, in mining, in railways, pretty much everywhere in our society at the moment. We can or are using space. If you mention a sector, I can pretty much reliably tell you how it's already using space or how it could do in the future. So even just thinking in the very short term, it's pretty clear that our use of space technology is only going to grow. Now, let's look a little bit longer term. So here we are, sort of 20-something years, just a little over 20 years into the 21st century. If we look back to the last century, sort of 1920, 21, and look at the change that occurred between then and the end of that 20th century, it's pretty fundamental change, all for the good. And I don't think there's any reason to think that the changes we will see in the 21st century will be any less dramatic. What do we already know about what's going to happen in this century? Well, we know that we are on the verge of a climate and environmental crisis. We know that we need to find new ways of living and working. I think the sense is that the last hurrah of the climate deniers ended with the US election last November. And I think now it does feel like a tipping point. The world is moving into a process of change where we're going to start to adapt to that crisis that we can see ahead of us. And what does that mean? Well, we're going to need better insights into the consequences of our decision making. We need to understand how the choices that we make impact on our climate and the environment around us. I mentioned fishing a moment ago. One of the projects that we're best known for is the way that we've used satellites to support a startup in the fishing sector who's helping supermarkets make sure that they can buy their fish and they can use fish that have been caught sustainably and are not putting undue pressure onto global fish stocks. And there's also being used for fisheries enforcement to make sure that around the world fishing can behave much more sustainably. And we're starting to apply the same logic in things like global deforestation and also changing the way the finance system works so that investing can support more sustainable investments and more sustainable businesses. We also need a faster feedback loop. So we are now starting to understand the impact that decisions we've been making over the last 100 years or so are having on the climate. If we're going to make change over the time frame that we need to make change over the next 50 to 80 years, then we're going to need to understand, are the changes we're making having the impact that we want? So we need to get better insights into a bit of faster feedback loop into the changes that we're making, so that we know that we're having the change that we want to have. And I think we also need to adapt to the changes that we can't mitigate. So we know whatever we try and do now, it is inevitable that sort of global temperatures will rise somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 degrees over the next 50 or 60 years, and that will have consequences in terms of climate change, sea level rise, and we need to help communities adapt to that, and we need to help businesses in their decision making so that they can be ready for some of the changes that are going to happen over that sort of time frame. And it's only really satellites that can give us the insights that will support that sort of decision making. The other thing we know about the 21st century, I think, is that it's going to be the century of automation. I think we know that self-driving cars are on the horizon. We know that drones are going to become an increasing part of the way that we live our lives and the way that we move goods around the country. We know that ships increasingly are going to become autonomous, and so to finally end the threat of piracy and to end much of the fraud that goes on at sea, which is and much of the crime that goes on at sea. Frankly, things like there's a very pernicious slavery trade that still goes on in much of the maritime industry, and autonomous shipping is going to be unable to get past all of that. Now, all of that is going to require levels of ubiquity, so global availability and reliability that only space technologies can deliver. So you can see that the way that the 21st century is inevitably going to evolve is going to make a more and more demand on the types of services that only space can deliver. And I think that's where the real opportunity comes from. So I hope that's given a bit of a sense of some of what's coming and why people are getting so excited about the opportunity of space technology. The great news is that the UK has all the ingredients and all the components necessary to be to play a leading role in the transition that's coming up. We have world-class end-to-end capability in space. We just heard about the UK launch, which is something that we've been developing over the last 10 years. I think our first launches possibly from Scotland, possibly from Cornwall. There's a bit of a competition going on there, which is all to the good. But we expect to see that probably during 2022. And it's going to be a different type of launch from what's available around the rest of the world, a more responsive launch. So that's going to create new opportunities for how we then take advantage of that launch capability. We have manufacturing of small satellites, we have the manufacturing of large satellites, we have a great services industry, and we have a great applications industry. So we do have everything we need to enable this to happen. And of course, last year, the government made what I consider to be a very bold and very sensible investment in OneWeb, which I think, again, that will provide a lot of that capability, that ubiquity that we talked about to support that future autonomous world that we can see around the corner. And of course, also we have global strength in artificial intelligence, in robotics, in 5G, and some of these enabling technologies which are going to interface with space in order to sort of help us migrate to this future. There was a news story this morning of a company called Astroscale. I think they were on the Today program. Some of you may have caught it. So this is a company that we've been working with who are developing technology to remove debris from space in sort of very creative new ways. I think the challenge of satellite debris is becoming well understood, and we need to do something about it. Part of our move to a more sustainable society, that applies in space as well. We need to find ways of using space sustainably and not leave our junk up there when we tire of using it. So it's a great opportunity, and that's why some 8 years ago the Satellite Applications Catapult was set up to help us take advantage of this change that's happening in space. Our mission is to innovate for a better world, empowered by satellites. And maybe 8 years ago that felt like quite a lofty ambition, but maybe with some of the examples I've already given, you can see that not only is it realistic, it's necessary. The way that we work is we work on a principle of energizing markets, empowering technology, and enabling business. And what that means is that we work with companies who could use space technology, who are outside of the space sector, helping them understand how they can become first adopters and early users of space technology to give them competitive advantage in their own markets. We work with the companies who are developing the technology that's providing these new services to help them get their products to market faster and give them competitive advantage against their competitors all around the world. And then we work in more generic ways with all businesses, whether they're inside or outside of space, who are working with the space community, trying to provide regulatory support, technology support, financial support, whatever it is, whatever barriers they are coming across from working in the space sector. It's not always easy to work in the space sector, but when you can, you get some great benefits from it. So finally, when we set up, just 8 years ago now, so the early part of 2013, it was the Catapult program was set up to be very location specific. We were set up in Harwell in South Oxfordshire, but slightly against the grain at the time. It feels odd now, but it certainly was not the policy environment we're now operating. We realized that much of the expertise that existed in the UK around some of the markets that we were trying to enter into, some of the capability that we needed, not only in the space sector, but in all of these other domains, it wasn't accessible at Harwell. So we needed to find a way of reaching out to get access to the expertise and the knowledge that existed all around the country. So we've been a very proactive Catapult, looking to engage across all the regions of the UK to make sure that we were not only making ourselves available to those different communities, but also making sure that the UK benefited from all the breadth of knowledge and expertise that exists right across the country. And much of that we've been doing, particularly most recently, together with the UK Space Agency, and that we're delighted now to be here in Yorkshire. We worked with the great universities at Leeds and Bradford for many years, but I think what Space Hub Yorkshire gives us is a new opportunity to engage with the businesses in the region. And I think that's what we're finding really exciting, and we're looking forward to working with you all about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. First of all, if anybody's got any questions, if you'd like to put them into the Q&A part, then we can have a few minutes to pose those to Stuart, but I've got a couple of questions. So the first one I'm interested in is, what do you think regional space hubs bring to the space agenda in the UK?
Well, I think the thing that we learned very early on is that we have some amazing clusters in technologies all around the country, which are maybe not always directly space related, but very adjacent to space. In Yorkshire, we know you've got a very vibrant financial services community. Financial services, I think, is an industry which is very it's on the verge, I think, of really embracing space technologies and taking in the sort of the analytics into on the transformation of the ESG agenda, and taking in analytics from space as a fundamental part of financial decision making and particularly investing. So I think that's an opportunity for Yorkshire to get more involved in, and it's by having conversations with the communities like that really add the diversity and breadth to the sort of offering that we're able to offer to our other the other companies that we work with elsewhere in the country. So space is really one of those environments where I think it's been quite narrow for a long time. I think it's been a bit enclosed in its thinking, and what we've been able to do, particularly with our regional engagement program, is broaden the conversation, bring in some other views, bring in some other ideas and concepts about the way that space technology can be applied. We found that extremely powerful.
It's been really useful, the help that you've given us. So Nafisa from the UK, from the Space Applications Catapult, has been really helpful and helping us develop our strategy, and thank you for that. For the businesses that might be on this this call, what is the best way for them to engage with the Space Applications Catapult, and what can you do to help them if they are interested?
Well, now that we've got the Space Hub in Yorkshire, that's an excellent front door to come in through. I know Nafisa is on our call, who's our representative liaising directly with the Space Hub and all our regional centres. But if you're thinking about space technology, thinking about how it might be able to help your business, or maybe you've got an idea about how you test some technology that you have that might be applied within the space sector, please do come and have a chat with us. There's a number of different ways that we can take that conversation forward, depending on precisely what challenge you have or what opportunity you think you see, or the options are infinite.
That's great. We have got a question in the Q&A, and it is, what role will the catapult take to join up the national space clusters?
So we have a role in most, if not all, the space clusters, I think, at the moment, and some of them we've taken an active role in setting them up, and some of them have set up of their own volition, which is all to the good. What we want to try and do is act as a facilitator, act as a way of sharing information, make sure that knowledge and expertise is well known within that group, so that we can all leverage off each other as best as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And one of the things we're keen to do at Space Hub Yorkshire is work with the other regions to make sure that we cover our barriers, and we strengthen our strengths together. So I think it's really good to have a vibrant UK space economy. We need to join up the regional space.
There are always things we can learn from each other, and
absolutely.
certainly I think our team in Harwell have learned from all the different space clusters that we've set up. It's very much a two-way thing, or a multi-directional transfer of knowledge.
That's great, thank you. And I guess it's not just satellites that give us insight. You've given us plenty of insight there, Stuart, so thank you for that time. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
The next part of the agenda, we're going on to Jonathan Hobson and Perspective Economics. So Jonathan has been working on the space mapping that we're doing for our region, and helping us pull together the strategy, the growth strategy for Yorkshire. And with some early insights and other findings, Jonathan, can I let you introduce yourself and take it away from here?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Mandy. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks to Stuart and to Mandy and Anna for the introduction. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview of the study that we've undertaken, let you know sort of how we're formulating the evidence base that underpins the strategy. And then I'm going to go through some of the emerging findings. So I think Anna mentioned this, or Mandy mentioned this at the start. Back in November last year, Space Hub Yorkshire was successful in receiving some funding. And that was really to understand the evidence base that would underpin a strategy. And in particular, we've been appointed to help develop a detailed understanding of the regional space sector strengths. We then are keen to inform a strategy and plan that has clear actions, including the support and the guidance and the investment that's required in order to achieve those. And then also we want to make sure that we understand how the region can connect to the wider UK space sector. So you can see what we're trying to do. The center of this diagram is sort of the nucleus of Space Hub activity. And what we want to do is to understand national and regional economic priorities, existing industry strengths, commercial opportunities, and academic capability. And where all of those meet is really where we want to focus our energy. So in terms of the study itself, we've undertaken a fairly detailed study, brought together a lot of evidence from desk-based research around academic capability and industry strengths. We've spoken to upwards of 30 strategic stakeholders involved in the space sector. We've held a number of different workshops with academics and with industry. We've run online surveys and industry consultation, one-to-one consultation. And we're at the stage now where we're distilling everything and just developing the strategy. So you've heard the question asked a couple of times, why space? And I think really from our research, what we understand is that first and foremost, it's a growth industry, major growth industry. And the second thing is that it represents a really genuine regional growth opportunity. So whenever we talk about the economic case, what do we mean when we say it's a growth industry? Well, the Size and Health report, the latest one that's available, published in 2018, identified that the industry grew in the UK by 3.5 billion between 2013 and 2018. It employed at least 42,000 people in high value jobs. And the UK expects that by 2030, it will gain 10% of the global space industry, and that's estimated to be worth around 40 billion to the UK economy. When we say economic growth, the Size and Health study also identified revenue growth among a number of different segments of the space industry, including suppliers of materials and components, which grew at 45% per annum, and scientific engineering support, which grew at 42% per annum. There's also significant growth among companies that operate in the downstream segment, including satellite data processors, satellite applications, and satellite communications. And in some of the technologies that will drive the space industry forward in future, there's high growth estimated of between 15 and 30% per annum globally. And that's in things such as space data services and space relevant technologies like quantum technologies. And I think you only have to look at recent announcements by companies like Amazon Web Services and their space data enabler for the world to really kind of understand what opportunities there are and how genuine those opportunities are. In terms of the regional opportunity, one of the other things that the most recent London Economics report found was that the industry is growing, but it's also diversifying, and it's diversifying into space manufacturing and into satellite applications. And I think the other real opportunity that there is that up until now, or currently, around half of the UK space sector organisations identified recently by the Knowledge Transfer Network are located in London and the South East. In 2019, those two regions accounted for around 80% of space sector revenues and employment. And between 2017 and 2019, those companies grew their revenues by about 1.5 billion. And it's great to have the KTN data set, and it already identifies 30 Yorkshire businesses that are involved or interested in space. But our research suggests that there could be many, many more, and potentially 100 more businesses that have known interest or for which space represents a relevant opportunity. And those businesses that we've identified 145 businesses, and between 2017 and 2019, those companies grew their revenues by 300 million. They invested 20 million in R&D. They secured 220 million in external investment, and they employed an additional 1,500 people. So they're already major drivers of the regional economy. So the next question is, why Yorkshire? And I had to be selective because there are very many reasons why space and Yorkshire are a sensible fit. I've mentioned that we identified 145 businesses that have active involvement or known interest in space. Yorkshire's home to some of the UK's most innovative users of satellite data. So for example, Yorkshire Water uses satellite data for leakage detection. And in a pilot that it ran saved an estimated 500,000 litres of water a day. SatSense, another local company spun out of the University of Leeds, uses ground movement data for building surveys and insurance purposes. JBA Risk Management is a globally recognised provider of flood risk and climate data for finance, insurance and the property industries, and also identified as one of the highest growing mid-tier private businesses in the UK. Company called The Flow uses geospatial intelligence to inform award-winning telematics solutions for the insurance industry. And Slingshot Simulations uses satellite data, visualizes satellite data to help create digital twins that can be used for urban planning and construction and infrastructure and that sort of thing. The region also is home to really significant component manufacturers such as Reliance Precision, Teledyne, and Techinex, who produce clamps for satellites. And I think there's also recognized industrial strength in telecommunications, including 5G network and connectivity providers, telecoms component design and manufacture. Why else? Well, Yorkshire is home to around 50 research centres, groups and institutions that have relevance for the space industry. We've summarised just a few of them here. It really is a long list, and I think that's one of the challenges that we've had in the study, is just kind of trying to summarise all of this. But you have climate, Earth observation, urban data and advanced computer techniques at the University of Leeds. You've got communication technologies, quantum communication and high altitude platforms at the University of York. You've advanced manufacturing and autonomous systems at the University of Sheffield, precision engineering and ultra precision technologies at the University of Huddersfield, and satellite communications and materials research at the University of Bradford. The region is also really well known for its computer science capability, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So I think, you know, it's been mentioned the strength that there is in the region's universities. It's recognised that in order to achieve the ambitions that the UK has, it's going to require significant numbers of highly skilled people in future, both in technical and non-technical roles. I think the estimate is at least 30,000. That's probably directly and many more indirectly. In 2019-2020, Yorkshire universities enrolled around 200,000 students, and that's equivalent to just under 10% of the UK student population. It had enrolment in really relevant areas, including 16% in geography and environmental studies, 11% in communication and media, and 10% in engineering and technology. And we've looked at HESA data, which identifies a little bit more granularity around what those students are studying. So there are 9,000 students in 2019-20 studying engineering related subjects, 2,000 in electronic and electrical engineering, 500 in mechatronics, and 300 in communications and systems engineering. There are also 8,000 students enrolled in computer science and information technology. And you can see those are distributed across core computer science, software engineering, software design, computer programming, artificial intelligence. So a real kind of major source of talent that is really relevant to the UK space industry and its growth ambitions. The region also has considerable experience and expertise in supporting startups and spin-outs. And you can see some of the business support provision that is there. Nexus, the 3M Buckley Innovation Centre, York Science Park, Bradford Digital Health Enterprise Zone. Yorkshire is home to 14% of England's academic spin-outs, next only to the southeast and the southwest, and around that represents about 40% of academic spin-outs across MP11. 3 Yorkshire universities are in the top 10 generators of income from intellectual property in England. And Yorkshire is one of the most successful regions at creating spin-offs. It's home to 16% of spin-offs in England, and that's a higher proportion than both the southeast and the southwest. And that's important because one of the issues that's been raised recently is the churn that there is in space sector startups. And I think this kind of support and this kind of experience and expertise is really critical in order to address that churn and to help scale up some of the really innovative businesses in the sector. And then I think this is lastly, but there is also a role for the region to make sure that the use of space data and the use of space technology is also informing social and environmental impact. So the region will offer leadership in these ways. And there are already examples of, for example, using Earth observation and atmospheric data to maximize the environmental impact of the White Rose Forest, monitoring climate change regulations, more effectively managing flood risk at Kingston upon Hull, better understanding movement of people for accessing healthcare services, and building a more comprehensive picture of environmental impact of traffic flows and infrastructure in urban areas. Whenever we brought all of the sort of academic and industry capability together, we felt that there were three core themes emerging. The largest one, we believe, is around capture, interpretation, and value-adding use of space data. And that's enabled by machine vision, advanced computer techniques, and core computer science capabilities. And there's also a real challenge in that to identify the commerciality within those applications, and we believe that the region is really well placed to help do that. Also on the downstream side of things, quantum technologies, optical computing and telecommunications, space surveillance and space data cybersecurity are regional strengths. And then on the upstream side of things, we've already talked about the electronic engineering, that the capability that there is in the region, but also known capability in component manufacture and an industry base that is well known for precision engineering and advanced manufacturing. So look, just in summary, the two questions are why space and why Yorkshire? Why space? Space is recognised both politically and economically as a major growth sector. It offers opportunity for economic growth and diversification in the region, and it's a really significant opportunity when you consider the levelling up agenda. Opportunities are clearly aligned to regional strengths. And Yorkshire has recognised in industrial strength and opportunity that's relevant. It's a leading region for knowledge, expertise, and access to talent. It offers a conducive and supportive business environment, and it's committed to realising social and environmental benefits of space alongside economic opportunity. So look, I will hand you back to Mandy. Thank you very much indeed.
That's great, Jonathan. Thanks for that. It's really interesting. And we've had a couple of questions, and I don't know if Stuart and maybe Anna are there, because they might be able to answer these too. But one that's come from Ken Brockbank is on the workshop last week. So we did some industry insight last week with some of the stakeholders in the region. And it was mentioned that there would be opportunities in the space sector relating to ground equipment and infrastructure. Can you outline what those are?
I'm happy to have a go at that if you like. I think absolutely there will be opportunities in ground systems and infrastructure. If we look at particularly in communications and OneWeb in particular. So the OneWeb system of low Earth orbiting communication satellites, it needs to have connection points, what they call hubs, another hub, at various points around the world in order to connect the satellite system with the terrestrial communication system, with the internet. And so there will be opportunities for providing these ground stations all around the world. And also there will be user terminals. So the customers of OneWeb, they will need a user terminal that's capable of connecting to the OneWeb system. And I'm talking about OneWeb, but all of these satellite communication systems have the same need. And I think that this is an area which is ripe for innovation at the moment. I think there are solutions available, but frankly speaking, we're still in the same stage as we were in the 1980s mobile phone world, where we've got brick phones and batteries carried around in backpacks. I think this technology needs to advance to make the systems more usable, and that certainly if we're going to get them into drones and into autonomous vehicles and those sorts of things. So this is an area that's it is very actively being worked on, and there are huge opportunities in this space.
Thanks, Stuart. And you might be able to help with the next question as well. So one of the things that Jonathan outlined was the strength of manufacturing in Yorkshire. And because of that, James Devitt, who I think is from the University of Huddersfield, has asked what emphasis will be placed to assist firms to pivot into the space sector. And I don't know if you have any more information on that. Certainly within our Space Hub, we're working with Huddersfield, in fact, or we will be working with Huddersfield to look at our supply chain. But is there any other information that you have or any other advice you can give to firms in our region who want to get involved in space from a manufacturing perspective?
Yes, absolutely. So there's another catapult called the Advanced Manufacturing Catapult, who we know are well established in Yorkshire at the AMRC at Sheffield and in other locations. There is when I'm talking about the ground terminals as well, this is one area, but also in the space segment in the satellite manufacturer, there's a lot of work going on now, transitioning space from a very sort of bespoke, almost boutique, hand-engineered, high cost manufacturing process into the high volume, high reliability, mass-produced system, but taking advantage of modern digital manufacturing techniques. That's another area that's ongoing at the moment, which we're working at in conjunction with the high value manufacturing catapult. And yeah, I've got no doubt that there's going to be opportunities for Yorkshire-based businesses in that area as well.
Thanks, Stuart. And I think one of the things that the Space Hub can really do is start to highlight those opportunities and to make those connections. Innovation in itself is only an idea. It's how we adapt that innovation and integrate it into our businesses. That's when we commercialize it and actually start to, create jobs and prosperity for the region. I know Anna had a question for you. Anna, did you want to share that?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment really about how our current why now, is another relevant question to everyone on this call. And I think that there's a real changing space landscape in the UK in general. I think that there seems to be emerging opportunities for more national investment in both infrastructure and in maybe what should be termed the user segment, users of data, which is possibly a missing part of the whole space industry. We don't have divisions to that extent in ESA even. And so I think now is a particularly timely moment for us to make sure that our civil and military strategies in space align and are complementary, which enables our investment in both physical infrastructure, training that next generation of space leaders in either Earth observation, exploitation, or instrumentation design, whatever you might imagine. And so I think now is a really timely moment. And I think we know from both the research that Jonathan has done and really is a hunch from why this initiative even started, that Leeds in the Yorkshire region has already got world-leading capability in this area, and so it's now our job to kind of link that up in a more dynamic and connected way, so that all the research hubs that we've got can communicate more effectively between themselves, but also that we can link through to the companies that are in our region to boost that economic growth. So.
Thanks, Anna. And actually that partly answers a question from James again, is the high value manufacturing catapult part of Space Hub Yorkshire? And I guess I'd say that every asset that we have in our region is part of Space Hub Yorkshire. They're not signed up on the dotted lines, but what we're here to do is to try and connect those assets and those centres of innovation to the businesses in our region that can actually take advantage of that research and that innovation and commercialize it. So in that sense, yes, it absolutely is. But all the other assets that we have in the country are things that we can try and connect. So for example, ESA, the European Space Agency, we'll be talking later, are an asset that can help provide direction, grant funding and different things to businesses in our region. So as a regional space hub, what we need to do is to connect all of those pieces together. And that's really what we're working on now in our space strategy. So I hope that answers that, James, for you. So moving on to the next section, support and opportunities, and I suppose this is partly to do with what James is asking about. Can I hand over to you, Steve, to look at the first roundtable on that?
Thanks, Mandy. Hi, I'm Steve Crow, and a bit like Mandy, on the board of Space Hub Yorkshire, but my day job is working for a private sector organisation that spans a whole host of sectors, and my role is to kind of understand the kind of regional, national dynamics, the structure of markets, and more importantly, the change dynamics. And so I've got my finger on the pulse of exciting new emerging disruptions in the market. And of course, it doesn't get more exciting than kind of space and satellite technology. So I'm delighted to be both on the board and delighted to be hosting the next two sessions. So shortly we'll be hearing from three individuals, organisations. Firstly, we'll hear from Paul from ESA, followed by Anna Taylor from DASA, and then finally from Andrew Wright, who representing the LEP, but actually in a previous role had a role in Reliance, which some of you may be aware was involved in satellite technology, and particularly the Rosetta satellite. So he's got first-hand experience of both being involved in the manufacture, but more recently in a role with the LEP. But I couldn't help reflecting as I kind of sit here in my study in Yorkshire, looking at a sunny day, and thinking that in about 12 hours time, it's going to be probably a very clear night sky. And those of us that are observant will be looking out the window, and you might see a few satellites. And I guess what we've heard from Stuart is, in a few years' time, we're going to be seeing a lot more, both globally and those that are being launched from the UK. So it clearly represents an opportunity for the UK and for us in Yorkshire. And I guess, through the work that Jonathan's been doing, and he didn't mention actually that, in those 30 or so organisations we've engaged with, we reached out, to a number of organisations. Not one came back and said, we're not interested. There's a huge appetite and interest in this area. So actually today I see as kind of corralling that enthusiasm, that interest, and trying to sort of get organisations collaborating for mutual benefit. So I go back to that point around data and telecommunications convergence. And actually what we see is, to say virtually every sector, you can start to see the opportunities for satellite technology, whether it's in the built environment, in smart cities, whether it's in financial services and blockchain tracking, food and drink supply chains, I think was mentioned earlier on, whether it's around GPS in logistics. Jonathan and I have heard from interesting organisations that are interested in seeing whether the wheelie bins have been put out of a social care home, or it could be in the agricultural sector, which is a massive sector for the region. Or increasingly, as we see, kind of the adoption of this sort of technology in the environmental and climate change agendas. So, massive opportunity. So, what I would like to do over the next 20 minutes is just to hear from each of the three speakers in about 5 minutes, their take on what they're seeing in the market and where their organisations are supporting this agenda. So, if Paul's ready to launch his slides, we'll hear from Paul from ESA.
Okay, so many thanks, Stephen and Mandy, for that introduction. I'm just going to share
just
my
whilst
screen.
Paul's doing that, if anybody's got questions you'd like to ask any of our three speakers, do use the Q&A facility. Over to you, Paul.
Cool. So thank you. So many thanks for that introduction. It's a great pleasure to be invited to speak here today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the downstream in the main. So my name's Paul Buttier. I'm a regional ambassador for the European Space Agency Business Applications Programme. We're actually part of a part of the European Space Agency, which is called ESA Space Solutions. And Space Solutions is all about helping businesses to exploit in the main space data to produce new businesses, either transferring technology from space or using in the main space data. So European Space Agency, just quickly about that, European Space Agency, obviously the European equivalent of NASA, if you like, in charge of space exploration, and also for launching, operating satellites and making sure that kind of the data from those satellites is used. We're not the EU. It's a different organization from the EU. So funding is secure from ESA, and is available for companies to bid and get that money. A little bit about me. My background is mainly working with satellite navigation, location-based technologies with all manner of business, also EO as well. I'm one of 5 regional ambassadors around the UK who look after different parts of the UK, and I particularly look after the Northeast and the Midlands. And I'm hosted by the University of Nottingham, where I've been working for about the last 12 years. So what is ESA Space Solution? Space Solutions, well, it provides end-to-end support for product and company development, and as I said, technology transfer. And there's a whole funnel there, if you like, of the support that we provide to companies. The bit that I'm looking at particularly is business applications. Some of you who are aware of the space industry will know that previously is the Integrated Applications Promotion Program. It's now known as business applications, and it's all about services. It's all about businesses. So what we're about is promoting and supporting the creation of service-based businesses. So it's not an R&D program. We're supported by other parts of Space Solutions, which include ESA Business Incubation Centres, which is aimed squarely at startup companies, and the ESA technology brokers who are looking at technology transfer of space business. So there's a whole funnel of support there to help companies develop through the cycle of their creation and growth. So what are we looking for? As I said, we're looking for services, innovative services. So it's innovative services that start from a market demand. So our customers asking for a service, they might not be asking for the space technology because they don't really know about space, what space data can provide that much. But it's not about a technology push. So we're not looking at companies who are creating space technology or using space data for the sake of it. There's got to be some customer demand. So in terms of that, it might be integrating some space data into a workflow to better monitor, maybe infrastructure monitoring. You know, we heard about the water companies that are using satellite and space technology in the region already. So that's a great use case. And we're focused on the business and the service deployment, not particularly the technology development. And it's all about fostering the utilization of existing space capabilities. So just to be clear, our program is not about launching new infrastructure into space. It's about using data from those existing space assets. We avoid research and new technology development. We work in close partnership with users as well as the paying clients to develop integrated and sustainable services. So desired, feasible, and viable. That's what we're looking at. And we're particularly interested in companies that are outside of the traditional space industry. So we're here that in the Yorkshire area, there's a lot of companies who are already active in space and a lot of people who can make use of space technology. So that's the area that we're interested in. We have a number of funding schemes. The money that we offer comes in the form of zero equity investment. So when you get a contract from ESA through business applications, it will come in the form of a fixed firm price contract from ESA. We have a number of different funding streams. We offer pre-feasibility funding through Kickstarter projects, explore business opportunity and the technical viability of new applications. These are generally through tenders that are announced on the business.esa.int website. These are on specific themes and only open for a small amount of time. Feasibility studies, a similar offer there as well, although we have a permanently open call for projects for direct negotiations. So that means that you can come to me as your regional person with an idea for using any type of space technology applied to any sector. The only thing we don't deal with is military, and you'll hear from Anna in a bit, who's going to talk about DASA stuff, so that covers that off. So you can approach me with an idea at any time about a project in the open call. And also we have demonstration projects in the open call as well, which validate business cases and the associated technical solutions. What do you get? As I said, you get zero equity investment. In the open call through direct negotiations, we'll cover 50% of your project costs. In the tenders for feasibility studies, you can get up to 100%. In Kickstarter projects, you can get about 75% of your project costs covered anyway. Please come to me to hear more about those things. Obviously, you get access to the ESA branding and marketing and validation through ESA endorsement. And also on the bottom there is a scheme called Aspire with ESA, which is more focused on sustainable development goals as well. So this is a question you should be asking yourself. Can you leverage space technology and data for the benefit of mankind, for the benefit of service-oriented businesses? So it's like any investment, we're looking for the return on investment, sustained business as a result of the investment that we put into your company. All the information is there on business.esa.in. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me to find out more. Financing from 80,000 euros to 3 million and beyond. Money obviously comes in euros. As I said, in direct negotiations, you'll get 50% of your cost covered as zero equity funding, and it's non-R&D. So that's very key thing to remember. This is all about launching businesses, developing businesses, supporting businesses, deliver services. And any type of data, we listed some of the more common parts, common types of data in the bubbles there, and any sector apart from military. So that's all I'm going to say today. In answer to Stephen's point, yeah, we're seeing a sustained kind of interest in the program. It's been very difficult because of COVID to kind of get around physically and see people. Obviously, that's not happening, but there's a lot of activity going online. There's a lot of events, a lot of workshops. You can contact us directly. And we hope to see a lot more activity coming from Yorkshire companies. There are companies that have been mentioned today that have already involved in ESA programs, and we'd like to see a lot more people get involved. So that's it from me.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for keeping that succinct. So just give Anna a chance to bring up her slides. I'm not sure that we'll be able to see her. I think she was just going to be oral rather than visual. I'm not sure whether that's because she's in a top secret MOD bunker and we're not allowed to see it, or there's some other reason for that.
Steve, before you go on, Jonathan had a question, I think, for Paul.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Mandy. And Paul, it'd be great to have access to those slides if possible. That'd be really helpful. But you mentioned about the market push, and so it's just kind of, I was keen to understand what ESA looks to in order to sort of identify that future demand. What sort of horizon scanning sources you look at? So
ideally, what we want is the company to have a relationship with the client, and we basically want companies applying into the scheme to differentiate or understand the differentiation between end users and clients. So, for example, the client is basically the organisations that's paying for the service that's being delivered. So, for example, if you're doing something for with a water authority, then maybe the water authority is paying for the data, and the end clients are making use of that data, which might be, you know, kind of individuals in their properties or whatever, who are paying for those services through the water companies. A very, very rough example there, but really what we're looking for is the companies to have an existing relationship with the paying client. So that's what we mean when we're looking for market demand. So when you apply into this program, we will expect you to have letters of support from your paying clients. Is that clear enough, Jonathan?
That's really helpful, Paul. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks, Paul.
Before we go on, Steve, on that point, would it be possible to send us a sort of scheme of opportunities for ESA that we can follow up on through the Space Hub, because that would be really helpful.
Yeah, sure. They're constantly updated on the business.esa.in website. There's also a monthly newsletter that anybody can subscribe to that has all those details too. But yeah, we can have a set up a mechanism to make sure those opportunities are shared. That's
lovely. Thank you very much. Sorry, Stephen.
Thanks, Paul. And I did note there was a question from Ian Brown at TechNext. We'll try and pick that up at the end if we've got time, Ian, if that's okay. But in the interest of finishing this session on time, I'm going to ask Anna to spend 5 minutes on DASA. Over to you, Anna.
Stephen. Thanks, Stephen. I presume you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not dialing in from a top secret bunker, unfortunately. It is just me. So thank you very much for inviting me to this exciting event. I was going to talk a little bit about the Defence and Security Accelerator for anyone who's maybe has not heard about it before. So my name's Anna Taylor. I'm the Innovation Partner for the Defence and Security Accelerator, covering the North East Yorkshire and Humber region. So I was going to give you a really brief overview today in a couple of minutes, and it's really to let you know, this is our mission statement you can see on a slide. I'm not going to run through lots of different slides here. So this is the image you're going to get for most of my little talk. So we're not a physical accelerator in the traditional sense of the accelerator. So we're not supporting individual businesses to develop their business, but we are a government organisation that funds innovation, and we accelerate the development of specific ideas that could be crucial to the needs of UK government stakeholders. So I'm here today, thanks very much, to let any organisations out there know who are maybe innovating, doing R&D, that DASA is reaching out to innovators to identify novel solutions out there that could benefit a range of government, defence and stakeholder needs. So this area, of course, covers fields such as space, satellite data and communications, lots of areas within that. So it's hopefully very relevant to the audience here today. Now, DASA sits within the MOD, but we don't exclusively deal with just defence customers. And our role is to engage with industry or academia or any kind of organisation to tap into the wealth of interesting and novel ideas that might be out there. In particular, we're interested in those which can bring benefits to UK government customers. And we're seeking ideas that could help protect the UK against its adversaries and to help keep citizens safe. And more interestingly, this includes funding for the development of genuinely novel ideas. So it's a great opportunity for people in the region. We're looking to see if you can solve a known problem or provide a new capability maybe that we didn't know was possible. Now, all these challenges that we have, they're available on our DASA website on the, and I'll put the details at the end. They could be in a really broad range of areas because space is pivotal to defence and security operations, and there's a real need to provide critical services based on space technologies. And the way DASA funds ideas is by delivering innovation competitions on a variety of topics and challenge spaces. So if you've got an idea that's genuinely novel, maybe not been tried before, which has got a unique need to be developed for a defence or security customer, then do come and talk to us. Like I say, the rep in the region, I'll put my details up, do come and have a chat with us. DASA accepts proposal submissions for innovations which are between technology readiness levels 2 and 6. And the size of the projects funded by DASA are typically between 30k up to 350k, occasionally more, but that's the kind of space we're looking at. And successful applicants will be developing their ideas over a period of anything from a few months up to 2 years maybe. DASA is not seeking ideas that just provide incremental improvements. So when you're considering how good alignment your idea is for DASA, think about what's already possible and what you're doing that's can really provide some extra benefits over what is currently possible. Can you provide, you know, a step change in capability rather than just something that's a little bit better than what can be currently done? And the other useful bit of our process at DASA for people submitting ideas is it's useful to know that we're able to have an initial conversation with innovators before they actually put a lot of time and effort into preparing a proposal. And I'd really encourage innovators out there to keep an eye on any future competitions that are being launched by DASA, pardon the pun, launching competitions. Our applications that come into us are put through a formal assessment and competition process, and decisions usually take around 3 to 3.5 months to get a decision. And just to give you a little flavour of some of the past challenges we set that are relevant to people interested in the space sector, we kind of recently ran a Space to Innovate competition, which was looking at the issue of an increasingly congested and contested space environment and what impact this might have on defence and security capabilities. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, satellites are becoming smaller, more are being launched, and with new opportunities come new challenges. So this DASA competition was looking for novel ways to protect and defend our space assets. So some of the things they were looking for included new technologies, like I say, for defending space assets, novel sensing, for intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance enablers, novel ways to characterize objects in space and understand their intent, and novel ways to deal with space to sea level optical comms. So that's just a little bit of a flavour of some of the areas that DASA has sought ideas from industry and from academia. And at the moment, you might be interested, we're looking for interesting technologies that can reduce reliance on global navigation satellite systems to enable accurate and resilient positioning, navigation and timing in GNSS denied environments. That's a mouthful and a half. I was clearly reading that off a screen. But all of this is on our website. But to give you a flavour, so that last competition I mentioned about PNT, that has a potential for people who's doing something novel there to fund a 6-month feasibility study in the range of 100 to 150k for that challenge. And other areas we may have an interest in are around, like I mentioned, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and other innovations to improve communication. So these are kind of examples that we've sought to solve. And so if you're working on something, do consider coming and having a chat with me. And if you have an idea that maybe doesn't align with any of the challenges that we've set on that are all on our website, we have an open call, so you can come and talk to us and propose the idea that you're solving. And we're keen, really keen, and I'll stress this point, to engage with people who haven't traditionally engaged with defence or security previously. You might be developing an idea that's being applied in another sector, but has useful application for a government defence and security end user. So we're keen to work with those people as well. So yeah, that was kind of mine, short and sweet. If you want to see our current challenges, they're on the, I'll move to the next slide, which hopefully will come up, and it hasn't, so give us a second.
We'll circulate the slides, Anna, if that's okay.
www.gov.uk/DASA.
Brilliant.
That's where we're at.
Thank you so much, Anna.
There we go.
Great, and certainly, you know, we've had amazing feedback from people we've signposted to Anna. She's always very helpful. That I guess just brings us to our last brief presentation, or although Andrew doesn't have any slides. And also I should say thank you to Andrew, because he's jumped in at very short notice, i.e. only about an hour or so again, to replace Danny from Arrow ECS, who had to deal with a crisis back at the ranch. Arrow we had here because they're a very large multi-billion turnover US organisation that collaborates and supports SMEs in this space. So yeah, in terms of their know-how, their technology, resources, Arrow kind of there to work with SMEs. But over to you, Andrew. If you could give us a LEP perspective. I think you're going to talk a bit about schemes to support innovation.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, Stephen. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to advertise a little bit of what the LEP does, and how the Space Hub Yorkshire fits into the wider scene of what the Leeds City region is doing in the innovation space. So yeah, I'm Andrew Wright, and as Stephen said, I used to be the MD of Reliance Precision. I'm in textiles these days, but while at Reliance, we did do the gear wheel for Rosetta, which was the bit of the Comet exploration that worked. We weren't on Phoebe, but we were on the mothership Rosetta. And that's now at Reliance grown into a satellite array deployment mechanism business, which has got electric motors as part of it, as well as gears. So very exciting. I'm still really passionate about space. I've signed up for Starlink. I'm not sure that I can sign up for OneWeb yet, but Elon Musk, the techno king himself, is going to apparently give me 150 megabytes a second of download from space by the autumn this year. So let's see whether he does that or whether it takes another year like a Tesla. Quite likely, really, isn't it? Anyway, so that's me. In terms of what does the LEP do, I guess most people on the call, because you're here, know what the LEP is. It's a partnership of private sector people working with the public sector in the West Yorkshire region to make sure that the public sector money that gets spent on particularly business support and training is well directed. And the committee that I do is called the Business Innovation and Growth Group, and Mandy Kind's on that with me as well. And what we're setting out to do is to promote growth, economic growth in West Yorkshire, so that people can have better, more interesting and more comfortable lives. That's why we all do it. And in terms of getting business growth, obviously one of the most important things that we've identified is that new businesses and new opportunities are particularly important. So when the opportunity to set up Space Hub Yorkshire came along, it seemed like an obvious thing for the LEP to get itself involved with and take a leading role with. I'm just going to give you a few bullets of things that are done already that are relevant already to people who are in the space area, as I'm sure we've got plenty of them on the call today. I won't spend too long on it, but it is worth just giving you a few bullets. On the downstream area, more on the digital side, there is the Digital Enterprise Programme, where companies can ask for grants to buy IT equipment up to £5,000 a go. So potentially quite significant, particularly for a smaller, medium-sized enterprise, which are the people that we tend to help the most. We also have the newly formed Digital Skills Partnership, which is bringing together lots of different groups around the region who are delivering digital skills to all levels, from school level through to adult education. Clearly very relevant is the number of young people that we have in this region, and one of the reasons I think that will continue to be attractive to the forthcoming space market is that we've got lots of people, lively young people who will be interested in this kind of thing. Supporting the upstream area and the more mechanical engineering and physical assets type of thing, we have a committee called the Made Smarter Committee, which has been a little bit virtual until this point, but we were happy to hear in the budget last week or the week before that there is some money coming now to support that work. And what the Made Smarter group does, it's about 30 industrialists sit together reasonably regularly, and we talk about artificial intelligence, big data, and some of the more modern techniques that support manufacturing in the most developed parts of industry, and making that much more widespread within West Yorkshire. And clearly that will have application for businesses that are involving themselves in space. We're also trying to support brand new businesses and entrepreneurs in general. And there's a point everybody to a very successful program that's delivered across the region called Connecting Innovation. If you're a new company that wants to know who in can help you interest your problem, they can put you in touch with a particular sector expert who will know the landscape in these 8 or 9 wonderful higher education institutions that we have in Yorkshire and point you in the right direction. Towards Anna Hogg, for example, I'm sure that would be one of the things that they might do if you were interested in space. We also have a new program called IDE@, or IDEA. @ is the @ sign, as in an email address. I'd encourage you, if you're a new entrepreneur or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, to join the IDE@ network. It's something you can sign up for easily. It's a virtual platform, and it brings together all things that are interested in new entrepreneurs. And coming out of that now, we've got a program of 15 companies that have spawned out of that common interest group. And they're being supported by 100 hours of input from already successful entrepreneurs. So big input of voluntary effort that's being put in to support new businesses. And many of the people in those first 15 businesses are not standard kind of entrepreneurs. You know, they're from all different backgrounds and lots of places where you wouldn't often find entrepreneurs. And obviously that's why we're supporting them. So what can the LEP do with the Yorkshire Space Hub? I'll just finish on this really. Fascinating to hear from Jonathan that we're aiming for 40 billion in terms of the amount of business that can be in the UK. And looking at the numbers of people involved in things like universities and the number of population that we have in Yorkshire, that means that here we should be aiming in only a few years' time to be a £4 billion industry just within West Yorkshire. So it's potentially huge, and obviously we need to be interested in that. By getting together as Space Hub Yorkshire, I'm sure we can help the government to understand how important Yorkshire already is and how much potential there is. So policy forming at the national level, I'm sure that we can help with that. But also for our clients and customers in West Yorkshire, the businesses, the SMEs, the larger businesses, and perhaps the entrepreneurs, I think we can signpost them through what is still quite a complex environment. I've just given you off the top of my head full of things they're doing, but there's a myriad of things to do. I haven't spoken about Innovate UK. We've got Lee Viney on the call today. Innovate UK do a lot of work with people in Yorkshire, and there is a partnership with the LEP on that. ARIA, the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, was announced to have £800 million last week or the week before. We've got the UK Space and ESA. Paul's given you a good steer as to some help that he can offer in that area. I still have the scars on my back for trying to get ARTES funding from the European Space Agency. It's well hard. And I'm sure that people on the call would appreciate some local signposting and assistance on that. And local help can be very significant. We've helped 400 people this year with digital grants for their IT, and we've got over 1,000 grants that have gone out to businesses to support their business growth just in the ordinary scheme of things. So I'm sure Space Hub Yorkshire will be helping businesses in the future to navigate the funding arena, and it will be bringing all of us, hopefully founders, on this call together to keep the cause going through the next few years. Okay.
That's great, Andrew, and thanks again for jumping at very short notice. I'm going to move swiftly on, and again, apologies to Ian Brown at TechConnex. We'll try and transfer that question into the next session. We've just lost a bit of time, so I want to move on to the next session, if I may. So, in that first session, 3 great presentations around the opportunities and support in the region. I'd like to invite our 3 speakers to stay with us if they would like to. But I would also now like to bring, I think we've got eight individuals who are going to join me for a round table. And what I'd like to do is to ask each of them to in no more than 1 minute, because we've, as I say, lost a bit of time, just in 1 minute, just to make their introduction and perhaps just give us 30 seconds on why they're interested in this agenda in satellite technology. So if I could start with, and again, a big thank you for Christina at Bradford University, who also jumped in at short notice to stand in for Professor Von Hu. So perhaps, Christina, if you're with us, would you like to?
Hello.
Just if you could keep it literally to a minute, please. Thanks. Just introductions and your interest in this agenda. Thanks, Christina.
I'm the Research and Knowledge Transfer Business Development Manager of the Faculty of Engineering and Informatics in University of Bradford. My background is in material science, but I'm sitting in a group of people that have major interest in space research. Professor Van Hu, she has huge connections with the ESA, especially in communication area, and together with her we have Professor Raid, who is as well specialist in communications. We have a huge, a strong group that is acting in data visualization and computer vision and artificial intelligence. All this could support the space research and development. The lab from where I'm coming is very strong in polymer and in manufacturing, especially with nano features and molding of polymers. So that could support as well manufacturing of different components for space industry. So that's us in Bradford, and open for any questions.
Thank you. And I'm going to follow on with the university theme. We've already heard from University of Leeds, from Anna. We've heard from Bradford there. I'm going to move next to Helen, if I may, at York University.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen Niblock, a Research Development Manager for Physical Sciences at the University of York. So I sit in a central research and enterprise directorate working with academics across the university to look at opportunities for funding and building collaborations. So I have a good overview of the research activity across the university. And specifically to the space agenda at York, we are the host for the UK National Quantum Hub in Communications. So quantum communications, safe and secure communications to satellites. We also have interest in robotics and space robotics and satellites. But there's also lots of expertise across the university that may not have recognised that they have interest in or relevance to space. So I think that's how we can work across the region to bring even more expertise and research into the Space Hub.
Thanks, Helen. And so we've got I should have said at the start, we've got a great cross-section of academia, government, and then large corporates and SMEs. And I'm going to move to kind of the large corporate side of things. And we heard a little bit earlier on about the applications of satellite technology to utilities. So like Richard Kirchhoff is with us to just give a quick introduction in relation to Yorkshire Water. Or Richard, I think you're having problems with your. I'll tell you what. I'll give you a few seconds to. Are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, great. Go for it, Richard.
Yeah. Apologies, I'm having problems with the headset. I'm put it on because I've got the family milling around in the background, so apologies. Yes, I'm Richard Kershaw. I'm Innovation Programme Manager for all things wastewater at Yorkshire Water. So that's anything covering networks, treatment and sludge. Our interest in satellites is fairly new. We're probably a little bit more advanced from a water point of view. I think it was Jonathan earlier mentioned about some work we've done around leakage detection. And we have a contract with a company called Utilis, who I'm sure most people on the call are familiar with, around leakage detection. And we're just starting to move into looking at the use of aerial imaging in general. So whether it be satellites, UAVs or manned aerial vehicles. And really the objective is really to deliver some fairly significant operational service improvements that we've got to deliver in this current 5-year period. At the same time as delivering some fairly significant operational and capital efficiency targets as well. So a lot more for a lot less, basically. So you know we're which is a great driver for innovation. So it's great news for our team. So yeah, I wouldn't say we have an awful lot of experience with satellites at the moment, but we certainly have some some thoughts around how technology can be utilised.
Thanks, Richard. It's good to hear you're at least starting that journey. And I'm going to stay with the kind of the large corporate theme and move to Shola from Teledyne, who are a huge organisation. She's in, I think, sunny Toulouse today, but has responsibility for kind of Shipley and Saltaire branches.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Stephen. So Teledyne, I work for Teledyne Defence and Space, who are based in Shipley near Leeds, and although we're part of an overarching Teledyne organisation, the company in Leeds is relatively small, 200-ish employees there. So we've been there for over 35 years, and we specialise in radio frequency equipment for communications applications. So a lot of the background and heritage there is in defence and military, but also in space. So at the moment, we're heavily involved in the manufacture of the OneWeb constellation satellites. And we've had a little bit already about how that's such an important programme for the UK. The UK government has invested heavily in that. It's an innovative project. So, there's lots of new technologies that have come out of that. And so it's really a good example of how upstream space can also be, benefit and create growth in the area. So for us, just in Shipley, through that programme, we created almost 100 new jobs just in Shipley, and we're still recruiting. We're still growing to staff up that programme alone. And of course, that's new skills developed and new things that we've learned as a company too. So there's lots of reasons we're excited about Space Hub Yorkshire, but it kind of helps us with the questions that we have about, how do we build on that growth and build on that progress in the coming years, and what do we do to retain these new skills in the local area, and what do we do to attract new skills into the area. So that's why this programme and this initiative is really exciting for us. So just happy to be here and to share with you.
That's great, thanks, Shola. And then to kind of, I guess, take it up to kind of a national strategic perspective, I'm just going to invite Colin and then Nafisa to do their introduction. So Colin, if we perhaps go with you first, Colin Baldwin, if you're there. Yeah. Thanks, Colin.
Really great to be here today. So why am I interested? Well, the UK Space Agency owns the growth targets for the sector, and we have responsibility within government for that. And my job title kind of gives it away. I'm head of local growth, so that's why I'm really keen to see what's going on here in Yorkshire, and we were really pleased to have provided some of the funding to help kickstart some of this work. From my perspective, space is really broad. We've heard about upstream and downstream, and how space can support other sectors. And that makes it actually quite difficult to engage with. So companies don't know that they could benefit from being in the space sector, and us sitting in central government have no idea who those companies could be So where I see the real value from these space hubs and the development of local leadership and those links with local groups like the LEP is that they help to break down that barrier. You know, the businesses that are operating in your area, if we can help you to better understand and advocate for space, you can reach out to those businesses, help to explain what those opportunities are, and then feed them through to the funding programs and the other support that we can offer. So we see this as a really fundamental part of growing the sector.
Well, that's great, and it's a key point. You know, we often hear, you know, companies saying we don't know what we don't know, and they don't understand the opportunity. And actually, part of this, I think, is just explaining to people in really simple terms what this technology can do and how it could underpin, you know, a differentiation approach for that organisation, or support them to add value to their client relationships. So I think as this thing evolves, then we'll start to articulate some of those messages. Next, I'd like to go to, well, first I'd like to thank Nafisa for her ongoing support already to Space Hub Yorkshire, but it'd be good to get a 1-minute introduction from you, Nafisa.
Sure, thanks, Stephen. Hi, everybody. I'm Nafisa Dider. I'm Head of Regional Growth at the Satellite Applications Catapult. I've been there for about 7 years now, and my job is to work in partnership with the UK Space Agency to grow the UK space sector in all parts of the UK. So although I'm based in Harwell, my life to date has been very much been on the road, engaging with clusters, potential clusters, people that just have good space ideas, to understand what their needs are and to help put the right mechanisms in place and gather the right people together to really start that space community discussion happening. And we did that in Leeds. You know, we were approached by Anna from University of Leeds over a year ago now to explore the opportunity, and I'm really pleased to be here as part of today's group talking about Space Hub Yorkshire. I think you've all worked really hard to bring your ideas to life as well, and I look forward to working with you further. What's really exciting for us is that as a Catapult, we're hoping to connect you into our new Space Enterprise Network, which will help bring communities across the UK together. So this will be a virtual platform where you'll be well represented in amongst all the other space clusters that we're supporting, so that you can start to learn from one another and really drive opportunities forward from across the UK. So if there's an opportunity in your region, you may wish to connect with other end users or other parts of the supply chain from other parts of the UK. So we hope that you'll be using that, and we invite everyone to be part of that Space Enterprise Network as well over time. And the Catapult will be here to support you and will continue to support you. So thanks very much, Stephen.
Thank you. And Nafisa, so we've I guess done sort of academia, government, large corporates. What we'd like to do is just hear from a couple of SME perspectives, and so hopefully we've got Dave McKee and Tracy Dawson from Slingshot and Dale Tech. So David, if you're there, can you perhaps just give us a quick 1-minute introduction?
Okay, thank you. It's great to be here. So I'm the CEO and CTO of Slingshot Simulations, actually a spin out from the University of Leeds, where previously we were doing research in large scale data applications. What we do at Slingshot is all about processing massive scale data sets, real-time feeds from everything from satellite applications through to demographic data. So hugely disparate, and combining them to mashing them together to drive new insights. And I'll give one example, which is actually if you take ground movement data coming from the Sentinel programs, actually to generate value from it, you want to know who is in what building. And that comes from a completely different location. And linking those together means you can start to open up other conversations with construction industries, with asset owners, and so forth. And this is work that we're doing in the UK, we're doing it in the US, and we're also actually leading some of the work at the Software Standards Body over the last couple months as well. So looking forward to the discussion.
That's great. And do we have Tracy? I think I saw her connecting earlier on. Is she with us?
Tracy sent her apologies. I think she said she's feeling poorly.
Oh, okay, I missed that. Thank you. Okay, that's great. So that brings us neatly to just gone 4 o'clock. We've got 20 minutes remaining before I pass back to Anna and Mandy. I guess a question I'd like to get a very quick sort of sense of is, what could Space Hub Yorkshire do for your organisation, or what could it do for you if you collaborate with the Space Hub Yorkshire? What could it do for you in terms of supporting your own clients? And I'd like to just quickly go back around the table in the order that we started with. So Christina, in terms of academia, I guess the opportunity is to collaborate with private sector organisations, both in terms of innovation and the skills agenda.
Yes, that's right. We have already experience in accessing like Innovate UK, Horizon 2020, now Future Horizon Europe, funding with companies. But it's brilliant to have this platform to engage with the people in our area and see what they require from the university, where our research should go, what people we should train to answer to the needs that they have to employ people. We've seen in the chemical industry, we had a consultation a couple of years ago, and we shifted our courses in that direction. Now Professor Fan is trying to do the same thing. The University of Bradford was very lucky to get a philanthropic donation, and we will invest all that money into a master in satellite engineering. So yes, for us it's a platform basically to know what people need the university to do, and what people we need to train to address your needs, and as well, like if this platform could facilitate engagement for funding for initial exploratory kind of research, I think will put us on the map a bit better if we are doing novel things instead of trying to replicate what the avenues or butter the pathway that they've been buttered for many years. Yeah.
So I guess facilitating that, not reinventing the wheel type of situation. Yes. Yeah, brilliant. Yes. So Helen, do you have a slightly different take on that question from the University of York?
Well, I'd agree with everything that Christina has just said, but as some extra points to follow on from my introductory spiel, and part of what I said was I think the Space Hub can really bring together new activity and bring together a joint vision across business and academia across the region, and bringing in academics that are doing very fundamental research that might not have realised the applications that they might have. So, for example, in materials research and computer science. And at York, we are wanting to increase our industry engagement. So I think this could act as a catalyst to do that. And the Space Hub can act as that broker to bring together the academics and those relevant businesses in the area to really think about what are the research expertise that the companies need and the skills that we need. So as Christina said, understanding what the talent and the skills are needed in the region, we as the universities can work with the companies to adapt our courses or to run placements together, for example, bringing those students into the industry and really understand what we can do to work together. We're actually funding our engineering department, so it's traditionally been electronic engineering, but we are now expanding to a more general engineering course. So I hope that we can bring in some of the local expertise to really expand the work that we're doing in this area.
And thank you for using that word vision, because it's often seen as a bit of a fluffy word, but actually if we can create a regional and a national long-term vision, we kind of all know where we're heading, don't we? And so you can get that alignment between the private sector and academia and public sector. We're all heading in the same direction, you're investing in the right area. So I think it's a really important word to try and draw out. And I often think when you talk about vision, the next thing to kind of highlight is value. You know, by collaborating, what value can we create as individual organisations and as a collective? And as I come to Richard at Yorkshire Water, I guess I'd be interested in, well, the original question, what can Space Hub Yorkshire do for Yorkshire Water? But how can that be converted into tangible value? Can by using this sort of technology allow you to reduce costs or enhance revenue or reduce risk in some way? So Richard, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we're sort of fairly new to the world of satellite imaging, so I think, you know, the jury's still a little bit out really in terms of what it can do for us. You know, we've got lots of needs. We have lots of assets in the ground, above ground. A lot of them we don't know where they are, whether it be very small wastewater treatment works. We've got 600 odd of those, a lot of them which are very, very small out in the sticks. And some of them we don't even know where they are, which I probably shouldn't say in open forum, but have done. So, you know, and then of course we have, you know, issues with leakage and pollution and sewer flooding, all of which, you know, can be in extremely remote locations. And so, you know, anything that's giving us a view of what's happening out there within our assets within the region is going to be very beneficial, really. In terms of what the hub can do for us, I think clearly we're not experts in satellite technology and satellite imaging and all of that sort of great stuff. You know, we're very much experts in water. So having kind of a central knowledge hub, if you like, or you know, for the hub to act as independent advisors, or to put us, you know, to be a sort of central point of contact between us as an end user and the technology suppliers, I think would be very beneficial. You know, I have innovation in my job title, so we get bombarded on a daily basis with salesmen, and it can become extremely difficult to, you know, interpret, particularly when it's something that we're not, you know, a technology we're not particularly familiar with. It can be extremely difficult to understand what benefit a particular supplier or technology can deliver, and also we have to comply with procurement governance, being a regulated monopoly. So, you know, we need to understand if a particular supplier is a single source or if there are other competing suppliers out there in the marketplace. So having that kind of, you know, central knowledge hub, I think, would be extremely useful for us to use as a bit of a sounding board as much as anything, really.
Yeah, and I guess with that GIS asset management sort of agenda, that ability to capture data and to turn one-dimensional data into three-dimensional, you know, kind of data, and your ability to do predictive analytics, you know, so rather than waiting for a problem to happen, and it's, you know, so you're waiting a month for a huge valve, if you can spot it in advance, then you're avoiding it happening in the first place. So I can start to see how the applications might sort of resonate for you. And from a I guess from a Teledyne perspective, Shola, I know from earlier conversations we were talking about skills in innovation and being plugged into the region. How are you finding the sort of skills innovation agenda in the region?
So actually, skills was what I was going to mention in response to this question. So as I said, we've got lots of positions open, and so in particular recently we've struggled with electrical engineers to try and radio frequency electrical engineers in particular. So the partnerships between industry and academia would be something that's really interesting for us to see if that's something we can use to develop those skills in the local area, or identify them if they're already there and we're just not seeing it. So yes, it's for us, the main focus is about skills developing in the area and attracting talent into the area so that we continue to grow and develop the local space industry.
That's great, thanks. And so having got the kind of the academic and the kind of the larger corporate perspective, taking it back to Colin and Nafisa, I guess, you know, same question, but you might have a slightly different take. Be good to get your understanding of that interaction between Space Hub Yorkshire and your respective organisations. Again, if I could start with Colin first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is a bit of a flip side of the coin of a lot of the things that we did. You know, from my perspective, having that local advocacy that I mentioned earlier within industry, government and academia to help to create that critical mass, connecting across different sectors. On the skills side, I think raising awareness that space is a real industry with job opportunities. You know, we know that space inspires young people, but actually, isn't it great if you get inspired by space at school and then think, and there are companies just down the road that I can then get a job in the space sector in, because that makes space very real. I think the whole thing about partnership building and then acting as a really strong communications channel. So both for us to disseminate opportunities out to the wider community, but also to bring those perspectives back to us, because you know, to make this work, we need to understand what will work locally, what actually is going to make a difference. So when we're thinking about how we're going to invest in the European Space Agency going forwards, you know, the usual suspects will talk to us. We get very strong inputs from the traditional space industry, but with things like business applications that Paul talked about earlier, that's really aimed at those companies that are putting their foot into the, you know, their toes in the water, the space sector. So getting that view back to us to help shape those programs is really important.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, all regions are different. There'll be some commonality, but it's understanding, you know, regional competencies. You know, what are the skill sets we've got, and recognizing where there are particular strengths and not kind of duplicating effort. You know, so for Yorkshire, recognizing there's real strength in say health big data, for example, is a massive sector. You know, how do we leverage that in particular? And that theme of collaboration, I think, you know, kind of regionally but nationally, I think is absolutely crucial. Nafisa, have you got a slightly different perspective on that, or anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's the build on Colin's points, and you know, we do work in partnerships. We are delivering our kind of regional activities together. We've got lots of years of experience now of working with businesses of all sizes and explaining what the potential for space technology and space data are to businesses that have never used that use that capability before. And so one of the things we'd love to do with yourselves is to provide you with some of the tools and materials that we've developed to do that engagement with the non-space community, to share some best practice in those areas, some of the practical, more kind of business focused engagement workshops to explain space data to people, to understand what the capabilities are of both the academic and businesses in the region, and to help you do some of that translational work and marriage brokering, not just across Yorkshire, but to parts of the UK where the skills and the knowledge in Yorkshire can help benefit others. So SHI and the Space Hub Yorkshire really is something that we'll continue to engage with and to help you by providing you with the information that you need to do some of that community building work that we've had experience of doing over the last few years. So you're an extended arm of ourselves. That's how we would see you, and that's how we'll continue to work with you.
That's great, and I guess just finishing with David, kind of representing kind of that SME, high growth, scaling, innovative, organisation, a particularly sort of challenging time. But I guess for me, really exciting, particularly if you've got an organisation that's not only credible regionally, nationally, but maybe has world beating sort of capabilities. So how do organisations like Slingshot get support from from the Space Hub Yorkshire, David?
It's a very interesting point. I think there's two sides to the coin. So there's one which is the more technical side of understanding how to work with the technologies and the data that is available. So we're very fortunate having background in academia with therefore a very good network across many of the people who are here, and particularly Leeds and York University. So we're very privileged. That is something that we recognize as our privilege because we come from that background, but maybe isn't available to most companies, or they'd have to really dig to try and find the right person. So that's the one side of it. But then the other side is actually the business value piece, which is where we come in with our digital twin technologies, with massive scale simulation and visualization. But actually, what we now want is people who have real problems and say, actually, we think there is some way to use some space data, but there's a missing link. So actually, how do you use space data to identify leakages in pipes? There's a clear problem, but actually there's a few missing links there, and companies such as ourselves and others can come in and fill that piece. And I think there's a role for this organisation to actually help to bridge that and marry up those different partnerships to say, actually, we've got some really innovative companies here who can solve problems for the big companies, to also partnering with the research. And I think that's the really interesting piece.
And that takes us back to, I guess, the theme that we're hearing all the way through. It's about collaboration, isn't it? You know, so collaborating across, you know, SMEs collaborating with large corporates, with academia, you know, and governments. A really good point. We've got 3 minutes left, and what I might do, so I don't get it's in the ear from Ian Brown. He posed a question earlier on. How do we manufacturers and potential manufacturers find out who needs what and what we might need to develop? Who is developing satellites and what do they need to do? I'm wondering who's got the best responses out. I'm wondering whether that might be you, Colin, whether you can give us 2 minutes on that from a UK SA perspective.
It
you
is
okay to answer that?
Yeah, it is a big challenge, and we are talking with some of the primes on this. One of the challenges is that the primes and the prime SME matching is actually not where we need to work. It's actually the tier 1 suppliers to the prime. So it is something that we're interested to look at. I think the knowledge transfer work, do some work in this area as well to kind of help to bring organisations together and look around supply chain challenges. And Nafisa mentioned as well the Space Enterprise Network that we're going to be launching with the Catapult shortly. That is really about connecting people up, and so we would encourage people to put forward offers and challenges onto that platform. And the beauty of that is it will be a national network, so it won't have the regional barriers.
That's great. And what I should have said, just as a point of interest in the context of Technex as an example, a great example of a business who perhaps has been disrupted by changes in the environment in terms of clamps on hosing in traditional automotive, moving into kind of EV solutions and solar power, and even into the clamps on thrusters for rockets for satellites. So there's an important lesson there is if there's a disruption, you can let it wash over you and undermine your business model, or you can seize the opportunity. And I guess I'm going to finish on time and pass back, but maybe just by concluding or making an observation that in terms of the opportunities, we're only limited by our imaginations on this agenda and our willingness to collaborate. And I think as we shape Space Hub Yorkshire and our focus, I think that collaborative approach, as I mentioned earlier on, will be kind of a real USP. I did promise Mandy I would finish at 4:20, and it's 19 minutes past. So I'm going to pass back to Anna and Mandy. Is it Anna?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks so much, Steve, for chairing that discussion. I mean, I think one of the main things that this meeting has highlighted for me is that we're not short of ideas in Yorkshire, are we? And we're not short of space expertise either. What we need is more events like this that can link up the relevant commercial and industrial partners with academics in all our fantastic universities that can help bring some of the ideas we've got through to fruition in the short term. We've got ambitions in the next year to kind of solidify our ideas and move forward, but also to have a long-term strategy for growth. And so I hope that you've all been stimulated by the discussions. I think it's really welcome that we've heard of some funding opportunities through ESA, and also the link with DASA that Anna highlighted earlier. I think that's an immediate thing that all of our companies can start to look at and take those opportunities forward. There was a few words that I really liked that were pulled out, and I think Helen mentioned the joint vision across business and academia, and with SHI and Space Hub Yorkshire as the broker for that. And I think that's a really good way of summing up what we're trying to do here. And so if you haven't fed your ideas into what that joint vision looks like, then get in touch with us, join the LinkedIn group. Ben maybe can post that in the chat again. This is really the start of something, not the end, and what we look like in the future is not yet decided. There's a possibility to shape that future. collectively. So I'd really welcome people's ideas to feed into that as we move forward. I think that there's a key thing here in terms of the fantastic skills and academic excellence that we've got across Yorkshire through our fantastic universities and other training colleges. And there's a need to kind of link those skills up with the commercial needs of companies in order for them to be able to spin out, but also then to scale up. And I think that scaling up is a really important part of what we need to do going forward. So again, I think Helen mentioned about how we need to make sure that our university courses match the skills training that our companies need. And so only through having those conversations can we make that sort of thing happen. But also even at the higher end as well, making sure that we have PhD studentships funded through centres for doctoral training in relevant areas. And this is something we're already great at, but we need to do more of, given the skills gap that the UK has in this area. I think that I also really liked the idea that was put forward about Space Hub Yorkshire being, a central knowledge hub, effectively acting as a point of contact or broker between the end user and consultancy. And so in our universities, we are able to know what's possible. We know how we can exploit satellite data sets for various different applications, but we don't always have the opportunity to kind of act on many of the ideas that we have. And so I think through linking up again our academic community with our business community, we can see more practical uses of space data in our day-to-day lives across Yorkshire. And I think hopefully that will help position us as a national leader. We'll have new applications that maybe then other regions nationally can take on board. And eventually some of those data sets or that expertise will be no doubt exported to other countries and used to help their cities and environments more efficiently and better using space data. So the opportunities are endless in space. We're not a one-stop shop. There's no one faculty in any university you can go to, or no one subject that we have to ask our students to study in order to have a career in space. And that's because space is for everyone. Even if your company is not actively a part of the space sector at the moment, I think that this is a real opportunity for you to kind of link in and find out what's possible. And it's so great to hear from the Catapult and UKSA about the national infrastructure that they're putting in place to support that education, training, development and spin up of our companies. So Mandy, can I hand over to you to fill in the gaps there?
I don't know if you left any for me, Anna, but I'll give it a go. So it's been great to have everyone here today. One thing that Stephen mentioned a few times is that we might be short of time, but we're certainly not short of conversation, and I think that's typical of Yorkshire. And so this is the start of the conversation and one that we need to continue. And I think that the amount of interaction today has shown how much conversation there is to have. Colin mentioned about inspiring young people. And that's really important to us. If you inspire young people when they're still at school, one of the problems we might have is that there is no faculty of space to apply to at university. So we need to follow those pathways and provide those pathways when we do inspire young people so they know how to get involved. Do they apply to geography or computer science, for example? Shola and Helen mentioned about pipelines of talent. So making sure that talent in our universities and in our apprenticeship programs matches up what our businesses in the region needs is another pathway that we have to help lay. Richard and Nafisa mentioned about helping our businesses understand the scope and the applications of space and what they can achieve. And David and a few others have mentioned the matchmaking opportunity there is to match up companies and establishments like universities. It's all about innovation, and really that's what this week is all about in West Yorkshire. And really what we need to do is to start to engage the businesses, the agencies and the LEPs behind a vision with the universities in not only coming up with ideas, but adopting those ideas into commercial standings. And I think that Andrew put it well, that growth in space could be worth £4 billion to Yorkshire. And that's not an opportunity that we want to not make the most of. So if we can put together that vision, we can get that engagement and we can create that collaboration and knowledge bank then I think we can really start to develop Space Hub Yorkshire into something fantastic. So we'll have our strategy coming out next month, and we'd love you all to be involved in that. But thank you for joining us today, and all I can say from now really is just watch this space. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone.